Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, where we keep you updated with the happenings on the paper. Today, the 16th of August, 2024. So do well to drop your comment, your views on some of the stories that will be on the front page of the paper. I'm doing the program with Rachel. Good morning.
Morning, Celia.
All right, and I'm Sele Elisha. All right, let's run through the papers, and we will be starting with the National Star newspaper.
The big story on the paper, APC crisis. Ganduje lobbies for vote of confidence as party gets September NEC meeting date. Tinubu asks NEC to fix national convention date. You can find details on page 2. Federal government rolls out $500 million investors tax exemption bond. NJC recommends Kekere Ekun as CJN 28 judges. NNPC uncovers 63 illegal refineries, confiscates products. You can find details on page 9. Controversy as federal government Chinese firm battle over ownership of 3 presidential jets. The writer says French court orders for future of jets to Chinese firm. Its plot to strip Nigeria of its assets abroad. A statement from the federal government. Ogun government reject ruling. Seizure of presidential jets, international embarrassment. A statement from OB. PDP boils as 3 sons fight over representation of acting chairman in court. Nigeria records 39 monkeypox, 5,959 cholera cases. Federal government inaugurates Joint Committee on Food Security. Shocking, Akwa Ibom woman feeds her children with fish and chicken feet. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on New National Star.
On Daily News Herb newspaper, seizure of presidential jet, international embarrassment, Peter Obi knocks Tinubu. Detail found in the paper. Disquiet in Aso Rock over presidential jet seized in France as federal government makes practical efforts to recover the seized aircraft, tackles Chinese company. Deploys AGF and the Nigerian security advisor, other top officials to deploy diplomatic and legal means. More detail in the paper. And on hardship, we have 3 least expensive states you can live in Nigeria, coming from the NPS rather, as inflation drops first time in 19 months. As well, we have NJC recommend Lagos Judge Kekere Ekun as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, elevate others to higher court. They actually had that meeting yesterday, which was supposed to hold today. And we know that if she eventually becomes the Chief Justice of Nigeria, she'll be the second female to actually take that role. Genius magazine honors selected personalities with Genius Metroleus Award August 25th. As well, we have court orders for feature of over $2 million, 7 landed properties linked to MFLA. Peter Obi continues P-Square reconciliation effort visit Peter Okoye, which you can see the picture story there, where he visited the other twin brother. As well, we have Kick Frankly, real reason I cut ties with my mother 22 years ago. So for those who are interested, you can do well to read detail of that. Kaduna State abducted female doctor still in captivity after 7 months. Bandits abduct mobile policeman as soldier escapes in Plateau State, detail found in the paper. Here we are having Senate counter Somali says we don't get 21 million naira as salary or allowance. If we will recall the senator representing Kano, where he came out to state that he actually earned 21 million. And here the Senate actually countering what he's saying they do not get that. So he said running costs is actually, according to the spokesperson for the Senate committee, they stated the fact that running costs is different from personal allowances and salaries. So you can do well to read more detail of that. As well, concerning the monkeypox and cholera case, we have Nigeria records 39 mpox, 5,951 cholera cases. More detail found in the and that's all on Daily News Help newspaper.
On First News newspaper, seizure of presidential jets, international embarrassment, Peter Obi blasts Tinubu's government. NGC recommends Justice Kekere Ekun as next CJN. MBS report Nigeria's inflation rate drops to 33.40% in July. Tinubu's presidency is God's will to reset Nigeria, statement from Mahi. Senate denies 21 millionaire salary and allowance claim. We killed 147 terrorists in 1 week, says Nigerian army. Military rather. The big story on the paper, monkeypox crisis looms. NCDC confirms 39 cases in Nigeria. Lagos, Ogun, Bayelsa, top hit list states. Epidemic ravages Africa. We have 2,863 cases, 517 deaths. Federal government, Ogun government moves to recover seized presidential jets. Man gets $7 million after 48 years in jail for crime he didn't commit. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct newspaper, federal government issue first $500 million local bond, says economy is improving. Coming from Hope Mahi, he's saying federal government eyes China for Akwanga Jos Bauchi road funding. Data found on page 21. And the big story here, alleged $74.5 million debt. Presidency Chinese firm in talk of ownership over presidential jet abroad. With the writer here saying Ogun government flees seizure, says Zukshak action fraudulent. An embarrassing leadership failure. This is coming from Obi blasting the federal government. Lagos unveiled digital portal for revenue payment, and we have troops recovered 220,800 liters of stolen crude, 1,113 hostages. Troops recovered 920,800 liters of stolen crude, 113 hostages. Data found on page 23. Nigeria's inflation falls for the first time in 19 months. You can do well to read that on page 7. We have few picture stories on the front page of the paper, which you can do well to get the paper and read more detail of the stories.
On the Matrix newspaper, NCS intercepts 12 containers of tramadol, expired pharmaceutical products, markets at Apapa port. You can start with the details on the front page. Presidency to appoint new head coach for Super Eagles. Foreign reserves increased by $4 billion since January. A report from Finance Minister Edun says increase due to implementation of robust fiscal policies and reforms. NLC disagrees with police over secretariat invasion explanations. NJC recommends Justice Kekere Kun as CJN to succeed Ariwola. Details can be found on page 9. The big story on the paper, diplomatic roar looms as outrage trails seizure of Nigeria's presidential jet. The writer said, how did we get into this international mess? Embarrassment. Obi demands answers. Firm using unorthodox subterfuge means to take over Nigeria's offshore asset. A statement from the presidency. Federal government deploying legal diplomatic efforts to recover seized jets and assurance from the AGF. You can find all the details of this story on page 2. 19 months after Nigeria's inflation rate dropped to 33.40% in July. Nigeria Equatorial Guinea signed gas pipeline deal, pledged deeper cooperation, where we can see a picture story showing that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his counterpart, Equatorial Guinea president, bilateral agreement. Still on the paper, federal government to issue $500 million domestic dollar bond on Monday. And we have an entertainment story that says Chidinma Adesina to compete Nigeria's pageantry after war with South Africa. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
New Telegraph newspaper talking about crude oil. Federal government unveils subcommittee on Naira transaction, with the writer here saying delay in crude supply to Dangote poses risks to the economy. This is a report which you can do well to start reading on the front page and continue inside the paper. Nigeria set for $500 million domestic dollar bond issuance. As well stated on the paper, we have strategy, deliberate research, development will stop skill exodus in Africa, coming from the president. We still have the CJN recommend Kekere Eku to succeed Ariwola as the CGN, as he will be retiring next week. Court orders temporary forfeiture of $2 million landed properties shared link to MFLA. Bauchi governors seek federal government intervention for flooding in 5 local government areas of the state. And the big story, which is on the mpox, we have NCDC places Lagos, Abuja, and others on red alert as Nigeria records 39 cases. First case of more dangerous virus found outside Africa, and that's why they need to be tighter, checking on our, seaport, our airports, and all of it to avoid more cases coming into the country. For 13 years, aviation agency operated without governing board. Inflation dropped by 0.8% points, settled at 33.4% in July. So we're seeing that our inflation for July dropped a bit, but then still there's a need for certain monetary fiscal policy to actually look into that. So you can do well to read more detail of that on page 2. Tinubu addresses shortfall in road distribution, says Umahi. And talking about Kano State, we have 2 arrested for police station signpost theft. And we actually saw that, and you wonder what really did they see in the police station signpost to actually steal that. Detail found on page 2. Contract dispute, Chinese firm trying to fraudulently seize Nigerians' assets coming from the presidency, says federal government working with Ogun government to discharge Paris order. Seizure of presidential jet, international embarrassment coming from Peter Obi. Invasion, we have NLC threatening strike if federal government and police fail to apologize. Demand proof of link with terrorists. Kick against government interference in union leaders' tenure. More detail found on page 4. We have a study that linked chemicals in makeup to pregnancy complication. Chemicals in makeup link to actually complication during pregnancy. So I think it's important for all pregnant women and intending mothers to read what this story is all about on page 28, and that's all the New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, NEMA advises immediate relocation as flood hits 27 states, warns 362 vulnerable communities at high risk of flood in Kano. NJC recommends Justice Kudirat Kekere-Okun as CJN. Don't mystify Tinubu, Clark tells Igbo appointees. AFCC seeks specialized court to try cases of oil theft and vandalism. The big story on the paper, French court seized Nigerian presidential jets over $74.5 million dispute. Federal government taking legal diplomatic steps to recover seized presidential aircraft. Ogun government moves to vacate seizure order. Aircraft seizure on international embarrassment, Peter Obi saying. Still on the paper, Tinubu urges African leaders to address exodus of skills and talent, says research and development must be encouraged with provision of appropriate reward. Military operations against crude oil theft yielding noticeable production increase, says a spokesperson. Details can be found on page 6, and we have a picture story where we can see truckloads of Okada seized by the Lagos State Task Force, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, we have Tinubu asks African leaders to address exodus of talent from the continent. As well, federal government clarifies seizure of Nigeria's 3 presidential jets in France. Assures on steps to discharge inappropriate orders against jets. Chinese firm plotting to strip Nigerians' offshore assets coming from the presidency. Firm misled French court on presidential aircraft coming from Ogun government. Obi says the seizure is an international embarrassment. Asks the federal government to come clean concerning that. Detail found in the paper. Still on the secretariat invasion, where we have NLC debunks police explanation about terrorists accuse the federal government of meddling in union activities. Despite court order, APC National Working Committee still recognizes Rivers Okorocha-led CTC. Court orders for feature of $2.04 million properties shares linked to MFLA. Delay in crude supply to Dangote refinery poses risks to Nigerian's economy, coming from the EIU report. Despite high food prices, Nigeria's inflation seizes to 33.40% in July. You can do well to read that, and that is because some of the food items or commodities in the market are dropping in price. So that is why we are having inflation being a little bit less by 0.8%. As well, we have NEMA advises immediate relocation as flood hits 27 states, where we're seeing Bauchi State governor seeking help from the federal government and other states as well. We have the picture story here where we can see the Lagos State governor together with other stakeholders during the launch of the LRP GRA Ikeja in Lagos yesterday, and that's all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, genocide threats, Igbo leaders indict governors, alert international community. The big story on the paper, federal government fights back over seized presidential jet, alleges deliberate attempt by Chinese firm to embarrass Tinubu, says asset representing sovereignty immune from such action. It is national embarrassment, Obi is saying, we're on the matter, Ogun government is assuring Nigerians. Air Peace will respond to Nigeria's threat to bar our airlines soon, coming from the UK government. Hunger protests, APC accuses Kano government of funding violence in state, dismisses alleged looting of Ganduje's trial documents by protesters. NJC recommends Kekere Kun as CJN, 28 others as judges of various courts. Nigeria Equatorial Guinea signs $2.5 billion gas pipeline agreement. Clark to Tinubu, implement 2014 confab report to unite Nigeria, says Anwayawu lost not just to Igbo but to Nigerians. Still on the paper, flood wreaks havoc in 27 states. NEMA says 227,494 persons, 32,837 houses, 16,488 farmlands affected. You can find details on page 28. World Health Organization declares monkeypox global crisis. NCDC confirms 29 cases in Nigeria. A picture where we can see Minister of Works David Mahi exchanges pleasantries with Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State during a visit. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at this day newspaper coming from the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, saying that the lending rate to manufacturers rose from 28.6% to 35% in the second quarter of 2024. Says continuous hike in the MPR tightening conditions for productive sector. Naira will gain if Nigerian manufacturers own weapons, argues Defense Minister. More detail found inside the paper. And we have World Health Organization declares health emergency over monkeypox, where we're already having new cases of about 39 here in the country. Still talking about the National Security Advisor is saying attempts to disrupt peaceful conduct of Edo Guber will be met with full force, and I think that's all on this day newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, despite rising price of items, NBS says inflation rate drops to 33.40%. The big story on the paper, anger as French court orders seizure of 3 presidential jets over dispute between Ogun State and Chinese firm. Federal government has no contractual obligation with Chinese firm, a statement from the presidency. Process attaching aircraft to contract fraudulent. Statement from the Ogun government says presidential jets are sovereign assets immune from attachment, says legal diplomatic steps on course to ensure discharge of inappropriate order. Secret purchase of presidential jets despite outcry insensitive. Peter Obi is saying so. Nigeria battles multiple diseases as monkeypox cases rise to 39. Kano government has reduced governance to a joke. A statement from Ganduje dismisses claim of missing documents on corruption trial. Nigeria sets new record as over 30,000 mothers breastfeeding simultaneously. Nigerians are hungry due to failure of government. A statement from Afe Babalola backs the patriots' call for a new constitution. Senate denies receiving 21 billion naira as salary and allowances, says running costs not peculiar to the National Assembly. Details can be found on page 3, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Well, right, before we move further, I think this whole seizure of the presidential jet, I mean, it's getting most of our papers. And what is actually getting me is what the Labour Party presidential candidate is saying, that secret purchase of the presidential jet, despite outcry, insensitive. And it's more like, okay, you went ahead to get this aircraft, despite the fact that Nigerians said this is not the right time. Do our president need an aircraft? Of course he does, for easy access from one place. I mean, right now he's in Equatorial Guinea. So imagine if he had his own personal aircraft rather than, you know, always chartering and all of that. But then we have to look at issues that are happening concerning the country. And then what really is the fact that why will we have the French government seizing 3 of our aircraft? I mean, I was hoping it was just 1, but we're having 3 aircraft. So I think there's more to what the papers are saying. But we hope that the federal government will come out clean concerning this. Just like he said, it's an embarrassment that the aircraft belonging to the president or meant for the president was being seized. So I think we need to call ourselves together and put things in order as a government to see what can be done, and then whatever the issue is, if there's a dispute between the French government and Ogun State, it should stay at that and not get to a national level where it will affect even the purchase of an aircraft. But then I know that there's still more to what the paper is having. So we'll just look at the unfolding, we'll follow it up, and hope to keep everybody updated with all that's happening on that.
I mean, it's not 1, not 2, but 3. That is a big number. We're talking about aircraft, not cars here. Jets that are being seized, and then for whatsoever reason, anytime there's a dispute, it means something was not procured properly. That's just what it means. No matter the Englishes we will have coming from the federal government and the presidency trying to clear out whatever this dispute is, anything that has a problem attached to it, it means something was not done properly in the procurement for the French firm to be able to say, okay, you haven't paid certain millions, and we are looking at over $70 million, and that is why they are taking it back. So it means that there is some kind of problem, a glitch, a misunderstanding. The deal, the process, the business wasn't as straightforward as it should be, and now all of a sudden it's in the open, and then that is what makes it embarrassing. Not the fact that we are purchasing airplanes, even it being insensitive, but the fact that there's a dispute, Sele, it means that there's a problem with the procurement, no matter what side it's coming from. And then the Nigerian government shouldn't be involved in something like that. That is the embarrassing part about it. When you look at it, why is the Nigerian government having paper issue regarding an aircraft that is being seized and all of that? So it is embarrassing. Whatever the presidency have to say about it, it doesn't change the fact that the government of Nigeria, when you want to make a procurement for whatsoever reason, it should be smooth and clear. We shouldn't even have these on the paper in the first place. So I just hope they clear up this mess eventually, and then we don't see a repeat of certain things like that. We can leave the financial implication at the side and what is happening in Nigeria, and talk about the fact that if you are a government of a sovereign country, when you are making purchase, you do it rightly to avoid embarrassing yourself with such a dispute and now claiming that they want to sabotage Bola Ahmed. Is like this administration, everything that goes wrong, like everybody wants to sabotage the administration. It's childish on a lot of level for you to sound that way. If you have procured this thing properly, gotten your papers straight, the deal was done in the right way, I don't think there will be any mix up. There won't be any need. Yes, there are diplomatic attachment to things and all of that, but for this to become a problem, then something somewhere didn't add up and something is missing. So this is embarrassing. No matter how we try to put it out there, it is embarrassing, and I just hope that the government tries to fix it.
Honestly, because when I saw this, and yesterday was the first time I stumbled over it, and then the first thing that came to my mind is the issue of the Sirika aircraft. Till date, we're having him going back and forth in court, bail, his sibling getting involved and all of that. We remember the whole
Saga,
pretense of
yes,
getting that
concerning
aircraft,
his
and
daughter, his son-in-law, procurement, left, right,
you get, and
center,
we know
money.
the story what actually happened during the purchase. So I just hope
Yes,
this will be another repeat of what happened
we
during
hope
that time. So
not.
we hope we get everything straight. Well, I guess that's how far we have on that paper. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Rains and repeat, which is a big story. In Nigeria await Los Angeles Olympics after Paris 9 billion naira pour outing, which we're seeing various picture stories showing us various representative of our athletes during the Olympics that just ended, and we can see various stories to actually read detail of that on page 4 and 5. Falling food price, moderate inflation spike amid sustainability concern. You can read that on page 6. Bauchi Emirate withdraws Senator Chief Taisis over alleged disrespect for governor. And on monkeypox, we have the NCDC places airport seaport states on high alert. As well, we have court order for feature of $2 million shares and properties linked to MFNA. Senate defense running costs for lawmakers, detail found on page 3. Address hardship to avert another protest, Oteta tells Tinubu. As well, we have international embarrassment, says Obi, as federal government moves to recover seized jets. As well, we have Disco's defend tariff hike, claim ban A customers pay lowest rate in West Africa. You can do well to read what that means on page 3, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper, the big story ahead of NEC APC power brokers plan, soft landing for Ganduje. More ambassadorial job for him, shop for new national chairman, APC governors to send 3 names to president. North Central stakeholders tip Al-Mukura. Can find details on page 4. NLC alleges plot to weaken labor unions. 21 million naira for running costs, not salary or allowance. And this is Senate responding. You can find details on page 6. Inflation rate drops to 33.40% in July, a report from the National Bureau of Statistics. As reported by Leadership, Kekere Ekun awaits Tinubu's approval as next CGN. Attempt by Chinese firm to seize presidential jets fraudulent. Statement from the presidency. Details can be found on page 13, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
You know, yesterday, Rachel, when we were talking about the issue of the Senate and how much they're actually earning, whether
Yes.
1 million or 21 million, and here we're seeing Senate saying that that is for running costs, and we already established the fact that the running cost is not being paid by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission. It's actually being, taken care of by the National Assembly Commission. Here we're seeing the Senate defending that the 21 million is not the salary. It's meant for the running costs. But I believe that Nigerians would like to go detailed. If that is for your running costs, how many of you actually spend that money judiciously?
Running your constituency.
Running your constituency. You need to go down to certain constituencies, and it will shock you if they really have a lawmaker representing them at any level. Let's not even talk about, to some extent, Nigerians can only tell you, they only feel the impacts of those in the House of Representatives. But then for our senators, you could barely actually have, they barely have in touch with the reality of their various constituency. So if you say this is the money, and of course you're supposed to defend it, you're supposed to bring papers, receipt of what you use. How many of our senators actually, truthfully, spend this money to actually run their constituencies? Because it's one thing for you to say, no, we are not paid this amount, but whether you like it or not, you are being allotted this money. It's not as if there's an account that has been said, okay, you are not the one operating. You are the signatory. You actually tell whether this money should go out or not, even though you have an office account and you have your personal account. But eventually, the money is being sent to you. You determine how and when to use that money. So I do not think it's far-fetched from what the Senator Sumadi is saying concerning he earning 21 million. I believe this is what Nigerians just want to hear.
If this money goes into their account, then you are earning it. If it is your running cost, it's not even supposed to come to you because it is for the constituency. And the challenge here is that with this coming to you monthly as a running cost, just as you said, how many of you can you brag and boast and say, you know what, your constituency get to feel the impact of this 21 million on a monthly basis. And it doesn't change the fact that you also have a lot of allowances that are not, we can say it is not important, or is just insensitive on a lot of level, and all of that, keeping it there. And if you have a running cost, we also know there are constituency allowances, because there are certain projects that you need to carry out in your constituency. And for long, we know that the Senate has access to all of these fundings and all of that, because constituencies comprises of many others. It's not just one local government out there. You do get constituencies and allowances for you to be able to carry out major projects, schools, hospitals,
boreholes, roads, and the likes.
Yes, all the basic amenities in your constituency. And can you say there is a proof of certain things? We all live in a constituency. What is the impact? That is the question Nigerians are asking. What is the impact? Where I stay is a constituency under a senator. Everywhere we stay is a constituency that belongs to one lawmaker out there or the. What can we say? We can see glaring that this person is doing the work and really running the constituency despite getting all of these things. And for fundings that are supposed to be used for work in your constituency, why is it going into your pocket? And at the end of the day, you're on the discretion of whether you should spend it appropriately or not. It is wrong completely. The Senate can keep talking, but it just keeps revealing the holes that, the problems, the loopholes, and it's high time they sit down, because I think we are in an era when Nigerians are going to keep asking questions and demanding. And the more they open their mouth to speak, they contradict themselves, they don't justify, and it just keeps revealing different kinds of problems at the end of the day.
Well, I hope that we'll not see this senator receiving another query, just we saw when Senator Ndume received that for actually speaking out. And I believe that if only we have our senators acting right, I believe that the governors of these various states will have very little problem running their states.
That's
because
true.
we'll see that senators are doing what they are meant to do. So we leave governors with bigger projects to concentrate on, more state routes and all of that. But then you concentrate on your constituency. Well, I think we'll just keep, crossing our finger, and then let's just see how this whole thing unfold. Well, before we continue further with the paper review, we would love to take a break. We'd love to hear what your own views are concerning some of the issues. Already we're seeing that monkeypox is ravaging, especially in Africa. So here we're already having a warning coming from the NCDC, talking about the fact that we have to be careful, putting high alert on our various seaport, airports. And then we also have other stories looking at what's happening in Kano State, where the APC are saying that the Kano government is behind the protests that happened there, and they are hiding behind the fact that certain papers are missing concerning the case of Ganduje. So we have other stories on the paper. We'd love to hear your own views. So when we come back from the break, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. It's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories, warning coming from NEMA concerning flooding. About 27 states where we're seeing, especially Kano State, has been affected by it. We're seeing also the governor of Bauchi State calling on the government to intervene in about 5 local government areas that have been affected by the flood. As well, we're seeing a warning concerning the mpox, which we see we have about 39 cases presently in the country. So there have been a red alert on our seaport and airport, and I think this is a time that everybody needs to be careful, avoid certain things that will actually put you at a high risk of contracting that illness. We have other stories on the paper which we would love you to go through and also drop your comment. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, we shall continue the paper review looking at the Blueprint newspaper. Tinubu's road infrastructure architectural master plan for economic growth coming from Umahi, which you can read on page 6. Still on Blueprint newspaper, I still live in a rented apartment, says ex-governor Shakaru, detail found in the paper. And on business, we have the federal government issues first $500 million local bond, inflation drops first time in 2 years. And on sport, we have 30-team battle for 40 million naira prize money as Youth Link kicks off in September, detail found in the paper. The issue of the presidency, OGSG, Chinese company misled French court on seized presidential jets, where we have a writer here saying insists Nigeria asset protected by diplomatic immunity. It's another P&ID case with fake investors coming from Unanuga. Ogun explained federal government moves to vacate the order, so you can read more detail on that. We have CAS launched the Nigerian Air Force pilot who lodged 10,000 flight hours on Super Tucano, detail found in the paper. Africa must develop its resources to progress, stop skill exodus. This is coming from the Nigerian President Tinubu. Police nabbed 2 for attempting to bury man alive in Kaduna State. We have 227,494 persons affected by flood in 27 states coming from NEMA. As well, we have the Nigerian Judicial Council recommend Justice Kekere Eku as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, detail found on page 13. Idris urges accurate, balanced reporting on Nigeria by international media, detail found on page 18, and that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, inflation rate eases to 33.4% in wake of harvest season. NJC recommends Kudirat Kekerekun as CJN. On monkeypox, Bayelsa leads as NCDC confirms 39 cases in 33 states, including the FCT. Mixed reaction as federal government plans to boost external reserves with $500 million federal government bond. You can find details on page 20. The big story on the paper, federal government, Ogun government battle to recover seized presidential jets. The writer says Chinese firm Zhongshan secured Paris court order. Other attempt by Chinese company Zhongshan to strip Nigeria of assets. A statement from presidency. Ogun government falls fraudulent legal process by the company. It's an international embarrassment, Peter Obi is saying. Federal government mediates between discussed man over electricity tariff hike. Igbo professionals condemn Igbo Must Go campaign. Details can be found on page 11. Tinubu Nguma signs pipeline project deal. That is the president of the Equatorial Guinea. And that's all the news on the Vanguard newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Business Day newspaper. Let's see what's happening in the world of business. Nigeria eyes domestic and foreign capital with $500 million tax exempt bond. Edu says the bond to raise external reserves. You can do a read detail of that. Inside deal that led to $100 million presidential jet seizure. We have presidency accuses the firm of planning to arm twist Nigeria, detail found in the paper. Nigerians turn to betting as the Premier League begins. So for all our sport lovers, we're about to see the betting again. Dealing with cancer takes you to a very dark place in your mind. This is coming from Farouk Bear. You can find that on page 16 and 17. The big story here says retirees die of hunger 3 decades after serving Nigeria. Federal government owes 250 billion naira pension as at May 2024. And yet we're having a back and forth on how much our lawmakers are earning. Meanwhile, people who serve this country with all their strength are dying of hunger. I think this is a call for the federal government, state government, and all the government to put their hands together and do something about our pensioners. They deserve to be treated with respect as well as to be given what they rightly deserve. So you can read all of that on the front page and continue on page 32. We have a picture story. This is concerning the meeting of the bonds, talking about how Nigeria will be exempted from the tax. So you can do well to get the paper and read more detail of stories of interest to you from the paper.
On Punch Sport Extra, Chine Merriam is saying that CAF Rangers battle ready for Zilim Mojo. Details can be found on page 6. Siasia to review plans after FIFA ban. Eagles to get new coach soon. An assurance from Eno. Osimhen nears Chelsea switch. Napoli contact United over McTominay. Details can be found on page 5. Chelsea boil over Fernandes vice captaincy. Arsenal switch focus to Merino. We have El Ittihad 1 Barca Atletico of Kante. The big story on the paper, let's do it again. Eagles duo Bassi and Iwobi seek Devil's Cap in 2024-25 EPL opener, where we have Man United going up against Fulham. Pochettino accepts US job. Adesina counts on experience to beat Duplessis. Ofeli Onekwechi Ogazi move up in WA rankings. Joshua will beat Fury and Alvarez. Details found on page 2, and that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
And that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for the
You're welcome, Sele.
Thank you as well to our followers, our viewers, and to the entire crew for making this program to be prompt on air. Until we come your way next week, to have a wonderful weekend ahead.